And I think the Met Police need to be held to account for the way in which they behaved.
Will you take action against the police?
I'll see.
For the leaking?
I'll see. Possibly.
Just talk us through the impact the investigation had on you. I mean, you've said you're the same person today as you were yesterday. But
look, Emily, it didn't have any impact on me. I carried on because I knew I hadn't done anything. But I'm sure there are lots of innocent people languishing in British prisons who equally didn't do anything, and yet they've been found guilty because this kind of lawfare.
Emily Maitlis starts right away into the dropped case. Lowe presents himself as a warning, not only a witness, therefore turning a personal vindication into a broad attack on British justice. Make sure you like and subscribe.
What Nigel's running, in my view now, and it's become clear to me, and I helped him as much as anybody, and I admire some of the things he's good at, but I'll tell you something, he's not fit to be Prime Minister. He's running a cult, he's surrounded by lightweight people whose idea of policy is to wander down to the Marquis of Granby and have a pint, and then come up with some sort of press conference the following day. Well, that's not how it works, Emily. I reckon if we don't sort this out by 29, this country will self-immolate. It will self-immolate because nobody's going to invest here. Nobody's going to take risk here.
Are you talking to the Tory party now?
Man, so I'm not going to forget that. But what Nigel's running, in my view now, and it's become clear to me, and I helped him as much as anybody, and I admire some of the things he's good at, but I'll tell you something, he's not fit to be Prime Minister. He's running a cult, he's surrounded by lightweight people whose idea of policy is to wander down to the Marquis of Granby and have a pint, and then come up with some sort of press conference the following day. Well, that's not how it works, Emily. And we need a professional party.
Starting shot and later crescendo are spliced to graph Lowe's path from booster to whistleblower. Everything that comes after frames the betrayal theme.
Let's just go back to the complaints. When did you first hear there were complaints against you? Because Reform says that you knew on December the 18th of last year.
There was no accusation of bullying against me, Emily. And
you're saying the women didn't ever complain against you?
At the end of the day, what you need to look is at the chain of events. I gave an interview.
I'm looking at that now.
I gave an interview for the Daily Mail on the 25th of February. Andrew Pearce, who I gave the interview to, he bumped into one of Nigel's acolytes on the 26th at a book launch. He told him about the interview. And then suddenly all these complaints, so the complaint about the meeting
came first.
Dated back to December.
The complaints came first. I'm going to ask you this anyway. The barrister that was hired to conduct the investigation found there was credible claims of bullying from yourself and the team, 2 women who worked for you. And
I'm not going to allow you to lift parts of the duvet and accuse me of things that I didn't do. I think we should stop this line and move on to something more principled.
I'm putting these complaints in the timeline to you so that you can respond.
You are picking little bits out of it and you're not looking at it correctly.
Maitlis charges with timestamps. Lowe responds with courtroom swagger. More fire than clarity reveals in the loop of proof, denial and lawsuits.
But it's not funny. I mean, my driver for the rape gang inquiry is that having looked into it, and it's something which I think a lot of people in this country probably were blissfully unaware of.
No, I don't think they were. Andrew Norfolk,
that's
who's the Times reporter.
That's your opinion. But I have picked up the mantle, and as you know, I don't call them grooming gangs. I call it Pakistani rape gangs, because 95% of these people are Pakistanis and very often from a particular part of Pakistan.
That's absolutely not true.
So it is true. It is true. Emily. But anyway, let's
from 2023. I'm going to tell you this.
Let's park that.
224 white grooming gang suspects were found compared to 22 Pakistani suspects. Why do you only talk about the Pakistani grooming gangs? That's police statistics from the Times.
I've now got on my
police statistics from the Times.
If you look at my rape gang inquiry, which you asked me about.
No, I didn't. I asked you why you're insisting on politicising child exploitation.
20,000 people have donated about £620,000 now. That shows you the depth of feeling and concern amongst British people.
Doesn't it show you should be ashamed that you are making money off a re-exploitation
I'm not. I've given
of
money.
This
I've given
position?
money. I'm not making money. I've given money to it. I will make absolutely less than zero. I've given a substantial sum to it, as have other people who care.
Why are you doing this? Why are you just trying to talk about Pakistani grooming gangs when there are 4 times, 8 times and 10 times as many white grooming gang suspects?
Do you not think, Emily, there's an issue with Pakistani Muslims raping working class white underage girls? Do you not think there's an issue there?
I think
Are you telling me there's no issue?
Appalling issue with grooming
Are you telling
when it
me
hits any community and any age.
Are you?
Claim and counter stat placed back to back creates a clear collision. Lowe's ethnicity lens against Mateless's police numbers. Neither withdraws. Make sure you like and subscribe.
Because they've travelled across safe countries,
That's not
which
what that says.
they
It says
shouldn't do. They
should
shouldn't do.
starve to death.
Under international law, they should not be travelling across safe countries to get here.
Yeah.
France should not be being paid $500 million a year and then shipping
This
them
is
over
migrants should be left with minimal food and let the midges
so
do the rest.
therefore,
Starve
hang
to
on,
death.
I'll answer your question. I said what I said because I mean it. If, because of the Human Rights Act, which, as you know, beds the ECHR
Let the midges do the
within
rest.
it, hang on, embeds the ECHR within it. If our arguably deficient legal system doesn't allow us to act as a proper sovereign nation, no, hang on, let me answer.
I'm quoting your words. You put them on an island
like
off Scotland with minimal food and let the midges do the rest.
Before you jump in like Rumpelstiltskin, let me
mean?
answer. So, if our legal system doesn't allow us as a sovereign nation to deport, which personally I would repeal a number of acts, including the Human Rights Act, and I would deport them straight away. And at the end of the day, if you don't think the British people agree with me, then you're wrong, because they do. They've had enough of it. You don't have illegal migrants living next to you, Emily, because you live in a part of the country that probably doesn't have them.
And if you did, you would want them to starve to death.
So you are part of this liberal elite who basically says, do as I say, not as I do. Okay, so I'm sorry, what I meant was, and I mean it, is if our legal system doesn't allow us to detain and deport, we should set up a tented camp on an island. We should not treat them unfairly.
This separates Lowe's most strict soundbite from his unreserved defence, therefore clarifying the deterrence theory.
And Margaret Thatcher showed you what can happen when you shed a deficient group of people.
Tory,
hang on. When you asked me a question, I'm answering your question. When you shed a deficient group of people, Maggie Thatcher gave us all hope in '79. Yeah. I'm older than you, but I don't know if you remember '79. But Margaret Thatcher, she gave people hope. She got rid of a statist, interventionist, trade union driven.
Are you talking to the Tory party now?
I could join the Tory party tomorrow, I think.
Have they made overtures to you?
I could join them. I mean, look, I talk to all of them all the time, and I think some
about
of them,
joining.
Some of them are very good people, and as I say, there's some extremely able young Tories who I think share a Tory agenda, which is what we need. But the other option is I set up a new party. That is an option, and we've got a lot of people following us on social media who would like that, and the advantage of that is you start with a clean sheet of paper. I could join the Tory party tomorrow, I think.
Have they made overtures to you?
I could join them. I mean, look, I talk to all of them all the time, and I think some
about
of them,
joining.
Some of them are very good people, and as I say, there's some extremely able young Tories who I think share a Tory agenda, which is what we need.
Splicing two non-consecutive responses transforms a meandering idea into a sharp fork. Hijack the Tories or found Lowe and Company.
Please,
and
let's
you're
move
suing
on
them
to
now.
something
You're suing Farage
I have issued.
and
I just told you, if you understand defamation and libel, which I've fought against Murdoch and won. I've fought against the Mail, or the Evening Standard, and won. So I know my way around. I've done 8 days in the High Court. Yes, I understand how it works. You may not. So you issue a letter before action, and it gives them a chance to effectively apologise. I've asked for an apology, and I've asked for my costs. I will issue proceedings, and we'll go to the High Court.
You will go to the High Court.
The defamation / libel.
Okay.
Against Lee Anderson, Zia Yusuf, and Reform. All three.
Let's go to the beginning of this year when Elon Musk, I think it was around the 5th of January, suggested that you would make a better leader.
He didn't actually. He didn't say that quite right. Emily, you use a very broad brush of term. No, what happened is he actually made a statement that he didn't think Nigel Farage should be leader of Reform, right? Which I now agree with. So I didn't at the time because I was working to drive Reform support along with my fellow four other MPs. He then, one of my supporters, and my social media, as you've probably seen, has grown quite strongly. In fact, it's arguably more powerful than Nigel's now. Even though he's got more followers than me, we create more content, and we I think page impressions wise, we're about 8 times more powerful.
Is that all you?
8 times more. It's me and my team.
Yeah.
It's an amalgam of, if you like, what we all think and what we all believe, and how we present it to people.
Yeah.
So one of my followers went back to Elon Musk when he said this, and he said, do you think Rupert Lowe should be leading reform? And the answer from Elon Musk was not that I should be, because I don't know Elon Musk quite correctly. What he said is, I don't know Rupert Lowe, but I like what he says on Twitter. That's what he said. So when you ask me these broad brush questions, you need to get them right.
Legal threats mix with social media swagger. Lowe uses algorithms and court to establish himself as a heavyweight competitor of Farage.
Blame plans.
So I'm now looking at what we can do. I'm 67. I reckon if we don't sort this out by 29, this country will self-immolate. It will self-immolate because nobody's going to invest here. Nobody's going to take risk here. Nobody is going to stay living here if they're
and what
rich.
does sorting out mean then?
They're going to leave.
What?
So what we now have to find is, you keep firing these questions at me. I'm going to try and answer them as best I can. But
Sure.
So what we've got to do is find a formula that works, and a formula that does have a plan, that does have a shadow cabinet, that does have a professional a chance of actually changing the way in which we're governed and repealing a lot of the maligned legislation.
From lawfare to midges, Lowe's apocalyptic deadline portrays every previous volley as bits of a single crusade. Let us know what you think down below in the comments.